Recently, as you may have seen, we did ups and downs so far in 2020 for WWE, which means, of course, now in the brand new wrestling world, we have to double back down on this idea and do ups and downs so far in 2020 for AEW. Don't you just love the fact you have two warring pro wrestling companies right now? I do. My name is Simon Miller. I am Mr. Ups and Downs, a name that my parents gave to me, and thank goodness they did, because it worked out all right. And here are the ups and the downs for AEW so far this year. Let's up those downs. There has been a lot of arguing about Jon Moxley's title reign ever since he did win that championship from Chris Jericho at Revolution, but I just think this comes down to the fact that he did manage to obtain this belt, and then fans and crowds were banned from buildings, and it just sent everybody into a spiral. Go back and listen to said audience when he does indeed get that victory against Le Champion. They go absolutely nuts, and I think it was great is getting it up. And sure, you can say that some of his feuds, like the one with Jake Hagar and Brody Lee, weren't the best, but I would blame the issues on the former, on the fact that we didn't have any fans to hoop and holler along, and the latter didn't have the best build, but the match itself, well, I thought it kicked ass, and sometimes if the destination is good, I'm alright with the journey. The best part about all of it, though, that was before we got to the pay-per-view, there was this discussion that went as followed. Well, Chris Jericho shouldn't really lose that championship right now because he's on fire, but Jon Moxley has peaked, and in the world of wrestling, that's when you should pull the trigger. And you just know that AEW management thought the same, but because the fans wanted it, they gave Jon Moxley to them as the world champion, and everybody had a smile on their face. You can't knock that, and we ain't gonna do it. As good as all that was, though, there was something else that has managed to steal the show in AEW ever since we kicked things off in January, and it comes from a shiny place, it comes from a magical place, it comes from a wonderful place. It's called the Stadium Stampede, and it's getting a golden up. It's just so stupid, and it's so dumb, and it's so entertaining, and you could just tell that everybody involved didn't give two hoots, and they just wanted to have a jolly old good time. And that's exactly what we needed as wrestling fans, because Matt Hardy and Hangman Page and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and everybody in the circle just decided, you know what, life is kind of crappy right now, the world has fallen into a dumpster, let's just go and try and put smiles on people's faces, what Vince McMahon always used to say. And I will tell you this, when it was done, I was smiling like I was 8 years old and somebody had just said, I can eat all the ice cream. It was like they had just decided to make one long over-the-top YouTube video, or that they were going to put it on international TV. I mean, everybody loved this. Well, no, that's not true, not everyone. There's always that one guy that's like, I don't like comedy in my wrestling because I can't enjoy it for what it is. And you know what? If that's your opinion, that's fine, that's cool. I respect you. But what I respect more is Chris Jericho seeing a football team's mascot and Judas affecting him right in the face. Also, the one-winged angel that ended the thing, that was absolutely bonkers. And you'd have to imagine that none of this would have happened if it wasn't for the global pandemic, which means this all came from a creative place, and wrestling and creativity get into a bed like two lovers who are about to have sex. Do I regret saying that? Yes. It wasn't all peaches and cream, of course, and while this felt like it happened 68 years ago, the Nightmare Collective were actually a thing in 2020, and it didn't really go to plan. Down. I still don't totally get what AEW was going for here, but maybe that was the point. I mean, it basically featured Brandy Rose and Awesome Kong just walking around cutting people's hair, and I still remember that first promo that Brandy did. I thought I'd sat on my controller and turned the channel onto the Twilight Zone, which is interesting, because ain't any UK channel airing the Twilight Zone in 2020. And I do appreciate the fact that All of Wrestling gave this a go, and I appreciate it more than when they realised it wasn't working, they just threw the thing in the bin. Too many times other promotions will try and ram your stuff down your throat. It never works, you get annoyed, and you go and do something else. They didn't do that. It also sucks for Mel, because she had to shave her own head, but I will say this, she looks absolutely badass, with no locks on her skull, and she looks a damn sight better than I do. So I guess it all worked out. Kinda, not really, but still. And when you do mention stuff like the Nightmare Collective and Stadium Stampede, there's always one dude that stands up and goes, see, I told you. AEW said they were going to be a sports-like presentation, but everything you've just mentioned is just nonsense, and it's ruining my entire life. But said individuals have completely forgotten about AEW Revolution and the tag match between the Young Bucks and Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, which, by the way, was so good that some fans said that was the best tag team match I've ever seen. up. And it remains an absolute beast too. Obviously, going back and re-watching wrestling always takes something away because you know who's going to win, unless your memory has betrayed you, but that's no good. But it's just how good these four guys are, the pace of the thing, the storytelling. It literally has everything you could possibly want from a tag team match. And when we get to December, it is going to be on the list with the headline Best Matches of the Year. It was also dripping in narrative, some of which we're still seeing at the moment. Are Kenny Omega and Hangman Page getting on? Is Hangman Page actually a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he going to turn his back on the Elite? It calmed down for a little while, but those planted seeds are back. And this was all top notch as well, because a lot of what he was saying was actually correct. He was overlooked. He wasn't getting his just desserts. Maybe he should go out on his own. Maybe he still will. All of this was executed so well that if AEW did have any plans to turn Page heel, they probably did have to scrap them, because 99% of the audience was going to back that guy, even though he was teaming with the beloved Kenny Omega. This, my friends, was fire. And massive reasons why those things were so well received, though, was because you did have thousands of fans in the arena just going, ah, ah, and screaming and shouting the whole time. So of course, when they were taking away, it absolutely sucked, and that gets a down. And this wasn't All Elite Wrestling's fault. I mean, what else were they meant to do? But it became glaringly obviously quite quickly that the fans, especially in an AEW show, almost acted like the fourth man. So when they were stolen away, it was just so damn upsetting. And it especially worked for casual fans who may just have accidentally flicked onto Dynamite, because the noise was so loud, you just assumed, oh, I guess every single person on this roster is the biggest star of all time because they are getting cheered or booed out the place. Maybe I'll have a little watch. The company actually dealt with this pretty well, in the sense they did put their employees in the crowd to try and generate some atmosphere, but is that the same as the visceral reaction you get from an actual person? No, it is not, and I tell you, my friends, this had other ramifications too, in the sense of debuts. I mean, over the last few months, we've seen Brian Cage, we've seen FTR, we've seen Matt Hardy, we have seen Brody Lee all arrive in AEW, and rather than get that initial reaction of, oh my gosh, it was just deadly silence, and that really made me want to pull out my eyes. But I mentioned Brody Lee, and ever since AEW decided to put him in the Dark Order, I finally think that group is pretty darn good. And that's it up. And sure, his Vince McMahon type gimmick separated the audience at first, but I kind of feel like we've stepped away from that, and everything that they have been doing with Colt Cabana recently is just the kind of wrestling storytelling I love. Is he going to join? Is he not going to join? Do I want him to join? Is it good for his career? I don't have any of the answers, but I want to see it play out. And again, yeah, I dug that match that Lee had with Moxley a lot. I think it's one of my secret favourites now I think about it, and this was all because they gave the Dark Order a leader and he brought them all back together. I know no one agrees with me, but hey, what are you going to do? And this is all the same for the emerging stars that AEW has spent so much time on over the last few months. I'm going to forget some people here, but there's MJF, there's Darby Allin, there's Sammy Guevara, there's Britt Baker, there's Big Swole, there's Nyla Rose, there's Luchasaurus, there's Jungle Boy, there's Chris Statlander, there's Wardlow, there's Shida, and we could keep doing this until the cows come home, and I don't even know what time they left. If you want your company to grow, you've always got to be building the new generation at the same time, and AEW is doing that in droves, is getting it up. And sure, you're not going to like all of them, but that's not the point. The point is about putting them out there, seeing if they're going to sink or swim, and while I'd always rather they swam, if they do sink, at least we gave it a go. You just never know what's going to connect in wrestling. It's what makes it so beautiful. As his name did come up in conversation, we also have to mention everything that did happen with Sammy Guevara, which obviously is distasteful and offensive to say the least, although I will say that I think everybody involved here handled it in the way that they should. Hopefully it'll be an education for all. And it's not an up or a down either, it's far more serious than that, but it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention it. I've mentioned it, let's move on. Right, hindsight is a powerful thing. Mike Tyson, down. Now, I dug it at the time because it made me laugh so much. It was like I was a part of some weird fever dream. But did it affect AEW Dynamite's ratings at the time? No. Has there been any significant fallout ever since then? No. Should we probably have not have done this? Maybe. It all depends on where it goes down the line. So it kind of just seemed to fizzle out rather than light a fire under the product. And yeah, it's not really a segment you would show to someone that you were trying to get into wrestling, unless they really like Mike Tyson and you wanted to try and prove he was going off the rails. I would still very much like to see Chris Jericho versus Mike Tyson, but as a little bubble thing that we saw, well, I've already made my thoughts known. What I do love is that AEW gives a massive crap about their tag team division. I mean, the tag team titles main evented part 1 of Fyter Fest recently, And just think about all the pairings you have. And again, I won't mention them all because I won't be able to remember them. But you've got Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. You've got the Young Bucks. You've got FTR. You've got the Nightmare Family, whatever the hell they're called. You've got the Best Friends. You've got the Lucha Brothers. You've got the Jurassic Express. There's Private Party. There's Santana and Ortiz. And the really cool thing is that sometimes these guys will go out there and have singles competition, but you know the team is still waiting for them when they come back to the house. And that's it. I love it. I truly do. I want every single division possible to have some kind of weight to it. And I know I'm going out on a limb here, but AEW probably has the best tag team division in the world. Cue the comments. I didn't even mention Butcher and the Blade there, but I certainly should have done, but that kind of acts as a nice segue here to start talking about AEW Dark, which I think needs to start being connecting better with AEW Dynamite. And I get that the world has changed, which probably did shift AEW's direction a little bit, but sometimes things happen on Dark that have a direct influence on Dynamite, and for a while there, nobody was telling me what I'd missed. That's a down. And I get it too, you want to hope that your entire audience is taking in all the content you're throwing out there, but for weeks, I had no idea what was going on with the Butcher and the Blade, the Bunny and QT Marshall. I thought I was losing my mind. Now I am losing my mind, but I don't need to get that evidence from professional wrestling. AEW has been much better in communicating this recently and linking the shows up a little bit better, but again, I can't just not mention it, otherwise I'd be a damn hypocrite. And talking about people being hypocrites, that kind of sums up the emotion when it comes to Orange Cassidy, and I want to give him a special up. A man who has divided audiences ever since they signed him, you just need to look at the facts. He's one of the top sellers on Pro Wrestling Tees, and he's about to get into a feud. Maybe when you're seeing this, it's already happened, but he's about to get into a feud with a former WWE champion known as Chris Jericho. This is dreamlike material. I mean, crazy dreamlike material, but I am here for it. Also, everybody outside the wrestling bubble seems to love him. Kids love him, adults love him, passers-by love him. He has such a unique gimmick and such a unique character. If he can continue to connect with people in this way, who the hell knows what the future could be. Also, I just love it because only in pro wrestling can you do this kind of shib. Give it to me and make me happy. And there you go, there's some ups and downs for AEW. I 100% have forgotten some things, because how can I remember everything that went down? But I've done my best, but I do want to give a double honorable mention to Britt Baker, the greatest character of 2020, bar none. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you think about all of this. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling. Head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always, and make sure you're always on that ups and downs train. I'll see you Tuesdays, I'll see you Saturdays, and I'll see you Thursdays. Did that in the wrong order.